Hello, everybody. I'm Justin Crosley.
This is Ryan Gibbons.
And we are back with a bonus episode of the Mare Island Brewing 10 years.
Battleships to Beer.
Thank you. I didn't even get the name of the podcast
Totally
right.
fine. Because bonus episodes have all been outside of the studio.
Oh, that's true.
And, after this one came about, you and I were talking, and it has to be in studio today.
Yes.
Got to have the good equipment that you got in here.
We wanted good sound because we've got good content, and we've got very interesting and friendly people with us, and we wanted a cool environment for that.
Absolutely.
Which you brought beer for.
I did.
So thank you.
I did. It had to have a beer for this, for sure.
Let me introduce our guests, and then we'll introduce our beer.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we, in our studio today, we have Aaron Quinn and Denise Huskins Quinn. You might know them from the Netflix special American Nightmare. Welcome to the studio, you two.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for
having us.
Thanks for being here. Now, listeners, you might be wondering, why do Ryan and I have Aaron and Denise in our studio? And it just so happens, especially if you saw the show, that they used to live on Mare Island.
Yep.
And are fans of your brewery.
Huge fans, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact. Yeah. I remember when we opened in 2014, these guys were some of the, you get regulars in here all the time at the Hop Grenades.
Yeah.
And, there's some that you'll talk to, but there's some you want to talk to again. And
Right.
that were these guys when we first started is, young, fun, friendly, loved beer, full of life. And, it was just three of us that started in the tap room, and you would always get excited when you saw these couple, few customers come in, and these guys were it.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely, no, you knew that you guys were coming in to have fun. One, you were going to drink a couple IPAs, and you were going to watch the Giants game and root hard for them.
Nice.
And if anything, have good conversation. So it was, it's nice to see you guys again.
You too. Thanks for having us.
Now, of course, the American Nightmare show is neither fun or great in any way, shape, or form, but it's part of your life now, and Mare Island was part of your life, and so that's why we wanted to have you on the show. And while and I had not, by the way, when we started the Mare Island podcast, I didn't know about you guys. Ryan, you came to the 10-year anniversary party.
Yeah, it was. I was actually putting together the guest list for our 10-year anniversary party we did at the brewery, and Kent and I were just trying to think through all the people in the last 10 years of who to invite. And, the American Nightmare docuseries came out. It was super popular and brought these fine folks back into my stratosphere again. And I said, you know what? It'd be nice to invite them back to Mare Island. And so I actually did a little search through our newsletter emails and found that Aaron had signed up for the newsletter. You were literally like one of the first 50 that signed up for the newsletter. And I was like, there's no way he's using this email again. And so I just sent an email out and was just like, hey guys, first off, congratulations in the best way I can say for the success of the docuseries, but more so, I'd love to have you guys come back. And it was about a week later, and Aaron wrote, he's like, we'd love to come. And I tell you, it was therapeutic seeing you guys again. Like it was just a really, one was surprised to see you, but the joy on your face for being back and then seeing our success in the 10 years was really awesome. So.
Oh yeah, it was incredible to see what has become of the whole brewery and everything that you've created. So thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely.
Well, and the cool part too, I guess, and as any way it can be, is as the docuseries came out, Ryan's getting text messages like, hey man, I'm watching the show and they're wearing a Mare Island Brewing Company sweatshirt on the show, or t-shirt, or whatever it was.
Both.
Yeah. So, in other words, fans of the island, fan of the brewery. And so now we're here to talk about a bit of your life on the island. Also, if you're interested in more, if you've already watched the Netflix docuseries, go and search for Victim F, which is the book that Denise and Aaron have wrote that I assume is well more comprehensive than even the docuseries. And at the very least, it's entirely in your voice, right? So it's your story. Yes. So listeners at home, search Victim F. I've got the book right in front of me. And it's for crime victims to suspects to survivors. And it's written by Denise and Aaron. And you can get like the full story from your mouths. And we're not going to rehash the docuseries here. If you want to know about that stuff, just go check it out on Netflix. It's called American Nightmare, or check out the book Victim F. We, of course, will sort of dive in and out of your story, your life on Mare Island. But we're here, I think, to kind of talk about maybe what you miss about Mare Island and maybe like how it's still a part of your life as a location, as the brewery, and just kind of the more personal side of your story, if we can do that. Can I start by saying, like, when did you guys move to Mare Island?
Yeah, so we're both physical therapists, and we work at the Kaiser Rehab Center doing adult neuro rehab. So people had either had strokes, spinal cord injuries, brain injuries. That's the type of physical therapy that we were doing. And I had moved to the island, or I had moved to Vallejo in 2010, and then I was able to buy a house on the island in 2012.
Okay.
And so I remember even taking the ferry probably in 2013. I think I was going out to visit my brother who lives in San Francisco. And I was like, man, someone should put a brewery out here, because that was like right when breweries are starting to build up and craft beers and stuff. And I was at this was probably 2013. I was at where were you brewing before?
We were out at Carneros Brewing Company.
Carneros Brewing. I stopped there because there was a ton of traffic. I stopped there to watch a Giants game. I was like, Giants are on. I'll have a beer. I'll sit in traffic. And then the bartender asked me, he's like, well, where do you live? I was like, Vallejo. Well, I was like, actually, Mare Island, because slightly different.
Yeah, it is different.
And then you came over, Ryan, about 5 minutes later. You gave me a card that said Mare Island Brewery. You're like, I'm opening a brewery on the tap room. I was like,
nice.
That's where. So I was excited for that. So yeah, so we're both. 2012 was when I lived there, and then that's.
And how long did you live there?
Till 2015. So,
okay.
Yeah. So actually, from where the coal shed is, it's like exactly like 1 mile was my old house. So,
Got it.
Yeah.
So you could basically ride a bike.
I could if I still lived there, and I probably would.
And
be.
you would, yeah.
You would, yeah.
And where did you two meet?
At the hospital we were working at. So
Okay.
I moved June 2014 for a 9-month physical therapy residency. So he and I met, and we would see each other at social gatherings with some of the residents and coworkers at the hospital, and we just kind of like gravitate towards one another.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the weekends where we really were like, I like you too. I was celebrating my birthday at the end of July 2014, and we were in San Francisco, and then Aaron and I took the ferry back, and I think, was there like a soft opening? There was something happening.
Well, we opened July 21st, so
Okay.
it literally had to be within days.
Right. So when we got off the ferry, he's like, "Oh, this brewery, it's opening here. I'm so excited to go." And then like he and I started dating, and that just ended up being where we would frequent.
The lights were on, so I was like, let's just go check. And then I think you said it was a soft opening, and literally it was the second day that you had done the soft opening.
nice.
And that's, yeah.
Sounds like July 23rd.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was, yeah. Because we were open every day, 4 days a week after that. But
Yeah, and then that was our date night place.
Yeah, and it's funny. Your tap house and brewery were like literally the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah.
We're just as old as you guys.
I love this.
You know, I'll
you guys are now married
Yes.
with children.
Uh-huh.
Okay. See?
Hence my voice is a little gone.
Dealing with it.
Holiday season with a 2 and a 4-year-old. So, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're only here with us because you get to day drink away from the kids a little bit. Yeah.
This is the first podcast we've done with a beer. I feel
Nice,
like,
nice.
is this allowed? This is
This is the
nice.
only way we do the podcast here.
Never
so.
done it without a beer.
And now I realize we should request a beer at every podcast we
course.
do now. Yeah, this.
Break the ice.
At
Hey,
least a pre-beer.
A Mare Island beer.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You know, it's like your green room, your rider or whatever.
Put it on the rider.
Put it on the rider. All green M&Ms and Mare Island Brewing Company beer would be perfect. Well, so speaking of beer, what I brought in today is Survivor's Tale Pale Ale, because there's nothing more embodying of the Survivor's Tale than what you guys have gone through and where you guys, are headed through. And we originally made this beer for the USS Indianapolis. I believe we covered it on a previous podcast. But, in thinking of a nice 4-pack to bring to share with you guys, I figured a Survivor's Tale would be just right for this.
On point.
On
Yep.
point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And delicious. So
And you brought a case for them to bring home.
I did
which
take
is nice
a case
you.
of the hydraulic sandwich for you
Oh,
guys to
there
take
you go.
home.
That was
because,
our go-to.
That's your go-to.
A little stronger.
Yeah.
All right.
A little stronger. And,
I like your style.
Again, it's holiday season, I don't get to see you guys too often. Speaking of the book, I read the book. It's a page turner. Like I'll tell you, I read it in 3 nights. It's 400 and some pages long, I believe, and so I hadn't read a book, I'd say 3 or 4 years.
Oh wow! All right.
And when we discussed you guys coming on here, I was like, well, I want to do like any good host and read the book. More so, I wanted to read it to find out the holes in the story or whatever that Netflix didn't get to. And I got to say, the thing I love about it is how it bounces back and forth between you guys and what was going on at the same time. And I thought that was done extremely well.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And I don't know if that was a literal like thought in doing it through you guys and the writer, but it was very, very fascinating because you feel like you're in the moment. You go back and forth, but you're in a timeline that's going forward. It's great.
Yeah, that's what we were shooting for. So much of what happened to us initially was kind of hijacked by law enforcement, by the media, and it was years before we really were able to start getting our voice back. And so we knew to really tell what happened would be through our own voice, and we wanted to give both perspectives, a male, female, both people going through. Sure. We were really going through separate traumas side by side,
right.
And then we meet back up and then join together. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I can just give the tiniest of synopsis, because again, you can watch the docuseries and you can read the book, but Denise was abducted, and the city of Vallejo and the police had a interesting way of handling the entire situation. And if you follow along and you watch, you'll find that a lot of errors were made, and you're left really wondering, how was this entire crime handled in this manner? You're left mind boggled about how Denise and Aaron were treated. So let me just leave it there so that people can go fill in all the details by watching and reading the book. But just so you know, some of the trauma that was gone through, because I think it allows us then to talk about like the location, the city, the people. It's amazing to me, by the way, to hear from you two that you still love the area and you still have this sort of kind nostalgia for Mare Island, even after all that happened to you. How did the Netflix docuseries come about? Because these tragedies happened. It was mishandled by the police in the state and almost everyone. You get to finally tell your story, but how does that come about?
Yeah, we wrote the book in 2021, and we've been approached at that point. I don't know, probably 24 different production companies have been approaching us because there had been.
They read the book, and that's why they approached you. Or?
After the book came out, yeah, and even prior to that, because the case had
such
garnered
publicity.
such.
I was going to say it was nationwide.
International.
Okay,
yeah, we even had
intergalactic. It had gone.
We even had a production company from Japan.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so
arigato.
Yeah, exactly. And so we knew we weren't going to do anything till the book was out because of how complex the case was, and as Denise was mentioning, like there was all these news articles, but we hadn't really got to speak and have people see it from our point of view. And it was very intentional to have chapters from Denise's point of view and then chapters from my point of view. And we planned that out years prior to on napkin. We wrote down each chapter and figured out the time at a brewery.
There you go. Nice.
So on point. And we were approached by Raw, which was a production company that made American Nightmare, probably in the summer of 2021 and maybe early 22. And we really pushed them to make sure that they were going to do some justice to us in the sense of not just taking your story and running with it, so that we would have some sort of input. Obviously, we don't have like full editorial control, but they really showed that they're do true crime in a way that's victim centric, which we had seen their other work, and now it's important for us as well because there was especially it's changing now, but there was a time frame where it was a lot more on the perpetrator and then the people who survived it, and we didn't want to be contributing to that. And they definitely showed that, and we it probably took about a year and a half from start to what you saw on the screen. So it's a long
and
process.
to make sure that it was more about the bigger picture issues that were highlighted, because yes, the crime itself was sensational in its own right, but we didn't want to just do something that rehashed the events of what happened and that be it, and it just be about the crime itself. There's a lot of systemic issues that we faced as victims that so many other victims face as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we were having that conversation be highlighted.
So like what?
Well,
I
initially,
love that you're bringing this up.
Yeah, well, initially, the confirmation bias and tunnel vision of law enforcement, how they handled interrogations. If you watch the show, you will see it's just horrific what Aaron went through.
Yes.
Being a victim of a kidnapping, being held captive, I was raped. I come back and I hear Aaron's experience with law enforcement, and it was really jarring to hear all the parallels of how I was treated in captivity to how Aaron was treated by police, like the isolation.
In captivity, Aaron was as well.
Right, exactly. Like he was put in a room and he didn't know what time it was, and they wouldn't let his family see him, and they lied to him, and it was all about just trying to break him down. And then to say that we were fighting, and then therefore he must have killed me. And instead, because they were doing that, they didn't look for me and didn't follow evidence that could have led to them rescuing me. And then I get released by sheer chance. I mean, I did my damnedest to fight in any way I could to humanize myself in front of my captor, hoping that he wouldn't kill me. I get out, and within hours, the Vallejo police go on national news to say it's all a hoax, and then I'm called the real life Gone Girl. And so it was crazy. They just went from one extreme to the next and continued to just only see that. And again, we thought like maybe this was just like a few bad cops in this bad police station, but it was also the FBI. And then we realized too, a lot of other people are treated this way. This is how they do interrogations. Not all of them, all police, but it was popular. Sure. And then the way that the media, the misrepresentation in the media, and they just kind of ran with it and didn't really like ask more questions beyond that. And then the public's rushed to judgment. I was attacked on social media, like death threats. And, you lose your identity, you lose your sense of self. And as a victim survivor, and you're trying to just reclaim your life and pick up the pieces of your life, it impacts every part of your life, your job, your family, your relationships, your trust in humanity. And so that's why it was really important for us to speak beyond the crime itself, because a lot of times true, quote unquote, true crime, it ends with the crime ending. And that's not the reality for survivors. Like it's a lifelong battle. And so we really wanted to make space for that and honor that.
Incredible.
Yeah. And then on top of that, there was or Denise's point of the social media that's starting to grow. It's like not much bigger now, but that was 2015. So Denise was getting death threats, but we were also turned to pariahs in our own community.
Which was were you still living on Mare Island at that time?
The abduction happened on my Mare Island home, so then we had to move out of the area. On a more positive note about people not the rush to judgment or this kind of like guilty till proven innocent, which is what we experience. You have we knew our friends and close family, our family and our close friends were the ones supporting us, but you start worrying about your community. Are people you kind of tertiary know, do they believe this like hoax theory? And after we were proven innocent, we ended up going back to Mare Island Brewery, and then we got to see Ryan. We write about this in the book as well. And you see him, he gives us a smile, and he literally shakes our hand, and he's like goosebumps, and he literally has goosebumps on his arm.
Me right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
It was like,
it was because you don't know what people think, and you hope, okay, we regulate this place, like we're authentic in these visits to the brewery, and you want to believe that people really see you as who you are. And at the time, everyone was attacking us except for our close friends and our family. And so you wonder, like, how do I come off? Am I giving people reason to believe that we're these horrible people? And you get scared of what people think of you. And so it was a big leap of faith just to walk through those doors again. And then just seeing you see us, it was just like you lit up, and it was like, oh, thank God. It was just we could take a deep breath and be like, no, people do know who we are. Maybe not everyone, but there are people in the community that really supported us. And that was helpful to hear from you too. You saying, people did come in and they had their opinions, and I just try to politely shut it down. And that meant the world to us.
I tell you, it was hard. I mean, granted, nothing compared to what you guys were going through in the media and everything, but it was hard because everyone had their own opinion that it was clear was being fabricated outside, and you don't know what. I mean, even watching the series, you can tell even some of the people, like your lawyers and everything, were kind of skeptical throughout some parts of it because it is just sensational, kind of how it all paralleled. And so, you have people coming in all the time and just like, oh, what about these? And again, we've never gone out and had dinner. We've never, we're over the counter friends, and, we were always friendly and for a few hours at a time. So, to that extent, we know each other that much. So I just always was like, no, they're literally like the sweetest people I ever met. Like unless they're like incredible actors, like psychopaths, that have put something together. But I have spent times with them when they've maybe had a few drinks, and you get to people let their guard
reveal
down
themselves a little bit.
The mask comes down a little bit, and I never saw the monster that they were painting you out to be. And so I obviously remember this morning as well. I got up early and I went over to brew at Carneros Brewing Company that morning because we were still brewing. And while we were there, the news starts to break out because, a brew day at somebody else's brewery is 10 hours easily just getting things ready. And so by the time I was leaving, I was getting all these texts being like, did you guys hear what's going on in Vallejo? And I was just like, no. And then your infamous driver's license photo comes across, and I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, I know them. I know them.
Yeah.
Know them in essence. But, you just, again, you're getting fed this narrative through the media. Everybody's trying to figure it out, and you're trying to figure out what is right and what's wrong. But in my heart, I just knew, it's like, there's just no way. There's no way that this could be this way. And obviously, I'm glad it was not that way in every shape of or form of it. But I
can't imagine the frustration of your story being told without you. It's just being told without you.
Yeah.
You have zero. I can't imagine that. So that, to me, I would be boiling up inside, and I'm sure. Yeah. So I can't imagine that. I will say too, the other thing that shocked me in watching the show is watching your interrogations, Aaron. Even on those videos, even on that weird surveillance camera where you're in a cold, weird room, you just came across as kind and honest. Like that was my initial. So Ryan had me watch the show so that we could do this interview, and I'm watching it, and I think I texted you. I was like, "But Aaron's just so kind. You can see it on the surveillance video." Mm-hmm. And in other words, again, the frustration. Like, I've told you everything. I'm just here answering questions. Right. I'm just being the person that I am. Like, that's how I felt about you. I'm just here being who I am and answering your fucking questions.
Yeah. They kept on telling me, you can't, you're lying to us, or like, let's start over. You can't. I'm like, all I have is to tell you the truth. I'm like, I'm like, and they're like, this sounds crazy. I'm like, I know it sounds crazy. I have no, like, at one point, I'm like, I have nothing else to tell you, or I have no other story. And then the FBI agent said, that's right, it's a story. And I was like, well, I'm only saying that because you guys keep calling it a story. And that is it, like, what people don't realize. If you're in that room and they've locked on you, no matter what you say is gonna, like, the only thing that would have got me out of that room outside of getting an attorney
was admitting it.
If I had lied to them. So
sure.
they're actively asking me to lie to them.
Right.
And then you can see why people would, well, actually, if you haven't experienced it, you can't really understand it. Experiencing it myself, I can understand why people would say, I'll admit to it because it gets you out of the room. You'll falsely confess, knowing that you're falsely confessing. You're like, I'll fix it later because you have an innocence mindset. You're like, I know the evidence supports me. That's what I kept on believing. I'm like, I know I didn't do anything. I know the evidence supports me. But it's a matter on who's looking at the evidence and how they're looking at it.
Of course.
And
did you end up having to be like, all right, screw it, I just need a lawyer then? I'm not going to talk anymore.
So I asked for an attorney after 15 hours. Wow. And then they don't give me an attorney. They actually sent my brother in. They lied to my brother and tried to get my brother to get a confession out of me, which is not an American Nightmare because he was unable to participate in it.
Okay.
You'll read about in the book.
Okay.
Because he is a FBI special agent. So they lied to him saying that and to get a confession. And the only reason my brother went, well, you asked for an attorney, and he believed me because he's like, I've never known them to lie about stuff. And this is, and so he was actually the reason why I was able to get an attorney. They weren't going to get me one. They're just going to keep me there indefinitely.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And is there a point where you go, okay, I know I'm innocent, and I'm just going to keep saying that, but I might go to jail for the rest of my life? Like, is there a point where you're worried about that anyway?
Well, I've told Denise countless times that not only she's my best friend and she's my hero, because if she didn't get herself free, which she had to convince the kidnappers to let her free because no one was looking for her, I would have spent the rest of my life defending myself in prison.
Gosh.
And then, and so both our lives would have been functionally over.
Of
right?
course, yeah.
And that was a level of pressure that like just is incomprehensible, and also, unfortunately, was incredibly ineffective. Like what they were doing was they weren't. I always knew that they would look at me as a suspect. They should, because I was the last person to see Denise. I just didn't expect I'd be the only suspect, and that they wouldn't be doing parallel investigations and verifying what I was saying. And at certain points, I'm like, well, you have my cell phone. Look at my cell phone. I like they asked me something. I'm like, you have all my text messages. Like, look at it. I don't know what else to give. I literally gave them blood, my clothes off my back. There was like absolutely nothing I didn't give them.
Right.
And that's the frustration of being there when and without the checks and balances of these officers. They just get to do what they wanted to do.
I mean, you hear about it all the time about, people like, oh, well, they didn't act this certain way or they didn't do a certain thing. And that's incredible that, just on your actions afterwards weren't in this box of like whatever detective school says that they should be in hysterics or, that alone was enough for them to say, oh, it's the boyfriend. He did it. This is a crazy story. Wetsuits, frogmen, whatever. This is weird. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the frustrating part too with that, when we sued the city of Vallejo and their police department, and in the depositions we're asking, captains, the chief of police, like how did they act that was so wrong? Like, and they admit that in their training, they're taught no victim acts exactly the same way. So they know that, but their application and how that feeds into their belief system is way off. And that's what's scary too, because they can only go as far as their beliefs, and their belief of women was clearly not that great. They didn't know anything about me, and we learned the chief of police told the spokesperson to go out and burn that bitch at the press conference where they initially called it a lie. And
I'll just tell you that captain used to come in my bar all the time, and same thing. Like, I never saw that person.
You're right.
And, that was that. So it was, again, the parallel worlds that I'm seeing across the bar.
Yeah.
As far as
though in the community, I mean, even at the 10-year event that we went to for the brewery, we spoke to a lot of people who were kind and saw the show and came up to us, and they're like sharing their stories of the Vallejo Police Department and like the horror stories that they've had to live through. And it's really... it's sad because bringing it back to the community, we loved like Mare Island and Vallejo is this, it's rough around the edges and there's certainly things to improve, but it had a depth and a soul to it that we really loved. And we really it was great to see the brewery and its evolution. Literally, like every time we came in, there was new memorabilia on the wall. Like, you've collected hats and badges and all sorts of things. And we got to see it come to life. And we were really looking forward to seeing that throughout the community. And so it's really devastating that such an infected culture in the police department can, impede the community's progress.
So you get released, you get yourself released.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out that it's not, eventually it comes out that it's not fake. The police department becomes under scrutiny. There's a lawsuit. How do you move on? I mean, I'm kind of curious about how you, because you still have this affection for the area. I can hear it when you talk about it. You're like, oh, Vallejo has its issues, but, and in my mind, I'm like, I will just move as far away from this place as I can and never think about it again. But you don't do that.
Omaha.
So what happens in your mind that I don't know. I'm just trying to.
Yeah. I mean, initially that being more or less forced out of the community. We loved working at the hospital we did, and we loved the community. And so it wasn't our choice to leave, but we had to make that choice because it was the safest decision. And so that, having your life determined for you and the path kind of, hijacked, and you have to figure out how to kind of claw your way out of the hole and still see hope in the darkest time. And so you really just initially lean on whoever you can. We were fortunate to have each other to lean on. And when we reunited, we really embraced each other, and there was no blame or, accusations between us or even between our families. And we've got big families, and everyone was just immediately like, okay, if Denise supports Aaron, we support him. If he supports her, and it was like a force to reckon with. If you meet his mom, you'll know, you don't mess with Mary Ann Quinn.
Love it.
But his brother's an FBI agent, so, and we were fortunate to find attorneys who believed in us. I mean, like you said, yes, it's sensational. Both of our attorneys were like, okay, no, repeat the story. Are you, and they were grappling with do I do this? Do I really take charge and advocate for these people? But they're like, nah, I believe them and we're going to do it, And so we were lucky in a lot of ways.
Okay.
To have the resources that we did to fight, and
there's a lot of hope there.
Well, yeah. I mean, it didn't feel hopeful, but you're literally taking it one step at a time. But looking back, it's like, well, that's how we got through it. We did have a support system, and we had resources, and we had people fighting for us, and there was just a lot of weird luck. It's sad to say, but the fact that my captor and rapist was caught for another crime months later, and it took a detective who looked outside of her own case and was like, I think there's more victims out there, and she followed evidence and she was able to connect the crimes. But if she just stopped at her case, which a lot of people do, then we would have, I don't know where we would be.
You might not be telling this story.
No.
Not in this way. Yeah.
No. And who knows if we'd be physical therapists again. I mean, who would trust us with their well-being if they thought we're con artists?
If there was always this doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say the heroes that I didn't expect in the whole series are your lawyers. Honestly, say what you want about lawyers. We've probably had bad ones, good ones, whatever in a way. But both of them, it was clear that they locked in early and were just like, no, we're going to bat.
Right. And even when he was caught, and so our attorneys are no longer defending us criminally. They stayed with us, working with us to protect us as victims and protect our rights and to make sure that we were supported. And they came to all the court dates and the sentencing with us.
Officiated your wedding too.
And
I was going to say, if you read the book.
Amazing.
Yeah.
My criminal defense attorney, he officiated. And then we had two tables of attorneys between the civil attorneys and, but they were initially our heroes before we really got to meet and know Misty, the detective who linked the cases. And then now we're friends with her. Our kids call each other cousins. I mean, we do speaking events in front of law enforcement with her and on our own. But
I mean, that's the crazy part. You expect the police to protect you, and it was your lawyers that were the ones doing the most work to get them in line. And so, hats off to them.
Yeah, I hope that that's something too. The general public can start to accept a little bit, because there's that negative connotation. Oh, they lawyered up. They lawyered up. Like, let's just get rid of that phrase, because genuinely you need someone there to support you and have your best interests. And so that should shift, hopefully.
And our legal system exists in that structure for a reason. It's quite easy to say that our legal system is flawed, and it is. Every legal system is flawed. Ours is one of the best on the planet. And in this case, it turned out, luckily, that you got to show that our legal system can work, right? And so, yeah, it is easy to say don't lawyer up. It's easy to say everything is corrupt. But in this case, because of good people within the legal system, it worked for you. Because of a good officer, because of good lawyers. Does that sound about right to you? Or do you not feel that way about our legal?
No, I think our case is both extremes.
Yeah,
like you see the best of the system and the people and of the world, humanity, and you see the worst,
the absolute worst
of all of the things. So I think that's another reason why our story resonates with people, because it's not all black and white. There's a lot of gray in between, and you can see and you can go through the worst, but still also be able to embrace the best. And that's just life for everyone.
I was going to say, with the going through trauma or how you recover, it's like to Denise's point, it's like initially you start seeing the world a little bit more black and white. At least I did, because you're suffering so much that you almost have to go like, all police are bad, or all this, or like screw all, like. And as you start kind of putting one step in front of the other, and you start getting out of like in our case, like we really condensed our lives down to like our close family and friends and everybody. You start expanding out, and you start seeing a little more nuance, and then you get opportunities to like go to the 10-year anniversary, and you get to see, and you get a sense of like, we still miss Island. We're happy where we're at, but it's like you get to reclaim a little bit of those pieces, and you start seeing more nuance, and you get to have more positive experience. Because if you cut out everything, you cut out, like, say you're going to try to avoid all the bad, you miss all the good too. Right. But that's, we're at this point almost 10 years out, so it's much different. Each year is a long difference. So you don't have to go through, kidnapping or be accused of what I was accused of, to have some feeling of like what it's like to be misunderstood, to be misrepresented, to have people who turn on you who you thought maybe were your friends. And that's part of the reason why we wrote the book. That's part of the reason why we did American Nightmare. The path isn't linear, but as you start, it takes time and evolves as it goes. It's very like almost episodic too, because there's phases where you have like things feel better, and there's like episodes where it feels worse. Doesn't mean that you're not making progress. It's just learning how to integrate
that
from
makes
it.
sense. Yeah. How about letting new people in? Like, have you guys, has it just kind of entirely changed about like, you've got spidey sense about everybody around you, and new friends and do you see what I'm getting at? Like, I love that you're saying, hey, but we can't miss out on life.
Right.
I love that you have that attitude, but I also can imagine there's like a net. I don't know what.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things was entering social situations after what we went through, because it was just felt, having this horrible trauma broadcast across the world, like you can't help but think that everyone's looking in at you and making their own judgments, and you don't know who believed what in the beginning, and now maybe they do, but they're not going to tell you, so it was really hard. And it also is just overstimulating, like just being in a group of people. I didn't like being in I didn't like going to places I didn't know people. Like it took a long time to really feel comfortable with myself again.
Sure.
And feeling like, again, reclaiming my identity, and to be like, no, I'm not what these people think, and like really holding strong to that. And a lot of that was being able to reflect and write a book and share and connect with people. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is connecting with others and realizing how many similarities we all have. So it was a long process. Thankfully, I feel a little bit more secure socially.
Nice.
But it's still, yeah, I think you're right though. Like,
I'm
especially
already self-conscious like all the time. I go to bed at night thinking of every dumb thing I said throughout the day. Never mind what everybody else thought about me, which is what you go, you know.
Well, and then too, now we're parents. We have 2 little girls.
Yeah.
They're just, I mean, amazing people. And that, I mean, being a parent in itself is scary. Like you think of all the things that could happen. You're carrying your newborn down the stairs and you're envisioning, you're tripping. Yeah, it's just like crazy. Your brain rewires
literally just did that.
like
Not trip.
I know,
I was
right?
like, okay, I'm like extra footing. Yeah.
I know, but so it's hard to not go there, like to think of all the worst possible things, because that's a scary place to live in day in day. So yeah, it's kind of like an active choice to recognize the risks involved with things, and then also to say, okay, let's embrace every special moment and the beauty, and like sometimes just actively naming it. And
Nice.
and I do that even with the girls. I'm like, it's a beautiful day, and then I hear them say it's a beautiful day. I'm like, okay, cool. Like,
and in many ways, you're probably more present than most of us because of this, because of that attitude.
Yeah, I try to be, but you still get pulled away.
Well, let's talk about you two for a sec too, because so when this happened, you were not married.
Correct.
You were dating.
Yeah.
Okay. When does it all? What year does it all sort of come to light that you're innocent and everything else? Is that 2015?
Yeah. So
2015.
The home invasion kidnapping happened in March of 2015, and then we were one of the perpetrators is named publicly in July of 2015.
So it's all when you okay. When do you get married? Because like I love that you said, by the way, like there was no blame, there was no judgment. We came together afterward, which could have been different.
Oh yeah.
It happens differently it depends on how you as individuals are going to take on that occurrence, that tragedy, right? You guys took it on in such a way that you came together. This is wonderful. When do you get married?
September 29th, 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case. Right date?
Right. Yeah. I did see that.
There was both.
No matter what, classic guy. You still signed. Did I nail it?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh,
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Points.
And when did you have children? Your first child?
So our first daughter, Olivia, was born March 25th of 2020. So it was exactly 5 years to the day that Denise was released. So
wow.
She was let go on March 25th of 2015. So
interesting.
So that gives another like kind of
layer.
A full
How did that feel like there was a significance to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like, as time's getting closer, and she was 10 days late, and you're like, no matter what the time was of that time,
right?
And it's like 5 years, and so when she was there, it's just it was kind of fitting. It was just that life coming full circle moment,
right?
Of in a odd way, universe saying like, when there's trauma, there's also life and rebirth, and
you took that date back.
Yeah.
Did it feel like a gift in that sense?
Oh yeah, but I mean, before that, we made a point every year on that time to do something special. So we would go to Hawaii, or like really just, we're going to take this time and take it back and do something meaningful. And those first couple of years, we would still be suffering, like physically, just, like when you get to the anniversary of a trauma, the smells in the air, like there's things that just bring you back. So it was nice to make a point of it. And then now it's just about celebrating her. So
wow.
It's a gift.
It's a total gift.
And I would like one recommendation, because I think everyone's recovery is different, is I would recommend if there's a specific date to actually just set that time, because it's going to be present regardless. You can't kind of like push it away. So as Denise said, we would go Hawaii, or we were in Yosemite one year, and we just made time to go, this is a significant day in our lives, and let's be somewhere beautiful, because we'd be suffering, but then you're also like, one year we saw a whale like breaching right when the sun was going down in Hawaii, and like the crowd cheered because everyone was watching the sunset. I'm like, I'm like, I could watch
There's
a
like I playing
million
bagpipes
sunsets.
on the
never-
cliffs. It was just so
Wow.
is this real?
This is the march I wanted.
Yeah,
This is the march I wanted.
And so you get something that magical, you just never, and you can't be as upset when you see that beauty and the awe, like, right? That's a big part of, as our little ones help us be in the present, in the moment of like, or like when our oldest was a little younger, she liked to see like a flower and get so excited. I'm like, oh yeah, flowers are beautiful, and that helps you a lot, and that's like really important to be like, to get some sort of in the moment grounding of it. And,
sure. I really appreciate this piece of advice from you guys. To me, I would want to run from the date. I would want to ignore it. Let's just forget that this ever happened. But you guys are saying you're never, ever going to forget that this happened. You can pretend, but that's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah, and your body remembers, right? Like you can try to block it out consciously all you want, but you physically, your body is going to be battling. And so why not just give yourself a little space to heal and rest and honor all that your body is going through and getting you through whatever trauma that you're getting through, because our bodies do a lot to help us.
Is some of this advice in the book, like that you guys are sort of telling your tale and like, hey, there's a way to deal with it?
Yeah, and it's not like a how-to, right?
Sure,
because everyone's a little different. So we try to touch on the pieces that really meant something to us. The first year I couldn't return to work, and I didn't have health insurance. I couldn't get therapy. I even had some therapists be like, oh, there's like a case. I don't want to be subpoenaed. So
dear.
it was hard.
That's ridiculous.
But at the same time, I respect if that's not, and I don't want them helping me if they don't feel comfortable with it too. So but it was hard to try to, how do I begin to heal? And so just, taking those moments of gratitude, going on hikes in nature, appreciating nature. I started painting for a little while. I journaled. We had a cat, adorable little cat. And Aaron would go to work 10 hours a day, and he felt secure that at least I had our cat accompany me.
That makes sense.
So, there's all these different ways that we can help ourselves in a difficult time. And then, of course, when we're able to, like, therapy really helped. We did couples therapy, we did individual therapy. There was times where we took a break, and then when we became public again, speaking out, like, it would bring a lot of stuff back. So I'm like, okay, back to therapy we go.
Right.
And different types, so, and speaking to other survivors, that was really helpful. Again, just connecting with people.
Sure.
Realizing you're not alone in what you face. And so, we tried to incorporate that in our book, just sharing our just day to day. And I think too, that's a big reason why a lot of people connected with the show. We got people reaching out to us from all over the world, male and female, of like, I went through this, or my wife is going through this. Like, to Aaron, like, men saying, like, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for talking about this.
Right.
Because I'm going through my own struggles. So that's really, like, as humans, that's what we need. We need each other. Because there's times where it feels like we can't do it on our own. And
of course.
we need to lean on each other.
And that everybody's against you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, again, like, it circles back to just Mare Island Brewery and Ryan, and like how much that meant to us. It was a huge thing to us to feel like, okay, like we do have support within the community, and that's really why your brewery is really special. Listening to the first couple episodes, I was telling you guys earlier, it got me really emotional, like in a bittersweet way, where I'm like, oh, like, this is why I loved, the brewery and going there and talking with you, and how much love and heart you put into it. And it's not just about amazing beer, because it's amazing beer. Mm-hmm. But the community support, how much you care about the history, and trying to let that reflect in what you're doing with the brewery. It's really unique and special.
I appreciate that. I tell you, the one thing, Vallejo is a hard nut to crack. It is. It's, the amount of times I've seen Vallejo come up over history, just, again, I know we're down this lane with your guys' story, but like the Zodiac came through there,
mm-hmm.
like all of these kind of crazy stories that come through Vallejo.
Yeah.
And, come to find out, the guy that they were pretty sure that it was him was 2.5 blocks away from where my house is now. And when I found that out, I drive by it. I'm like, but the town has such amazing people in it.
A character to
it has character in it, and the crazy stories that come out seem to be the only thing driving the narrative. And so, kind of what Kent and I try to do with the brewery is there's so many great positive stories that come out of this. These beautiful people met and are married and have beautiful kids because of the area there. There's certainly aspects of their story that aren't great in the area for sure, but Vallejo it's a downtrodden dog that just won't go down. And for us, and I appreciate you saying it, like we see the better and we want to be the light that's coming out of it, because there's so much light within it that people don't get to see it.
Right.
And so, again, like the chill bumps I told you when you guys were like celebrities when you walked into my place, because I was like, I'd heard so much about you, hadn't talked to you in about 1.5 years or whatever it had been. And all I really want to do is just come over and hug you. Because the last time I saw you, you wrote a tip on a credit card receipt, passed it across the bar, and that was the last I saw you. And so,
Are they good tippers?
They were good tippers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I hope the answer is a real cheapskate.
It's the only time I'm going to put you on the spot today, okay? I just want to make sure you're good tippers.
That's why, that's why we'd be like, Aaron's coming in. We'd be like, oh, hey, yeah, okay, what's up, Aaron?
Yeah. That was all part of the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
A good tipper, though. You can't do that.
Yeah.
I stood up on the stand. It couldn't have been him. He tips so well.
Yeah, there you go.
So I appreciate that, and it's I don't want to say it's fully intentional, but it's definitely intentional to try to be the positive thing that's going on in that area.
Well, that it's my favorite part. I've told you and Kent this. It's my favorite part about your story. It's my favorite part about the two of you. Aside from how cool you are together, you guys have this weird, cool partnership.
I kind of feel lost without him right now.
I know.
Honest with you. Like I've been quiet.
You guys are so cool together. It is the way you're a community. The whole thing was always about the community. You named it Mare Island Brewing Company, not just because you're on the island, but because you want to tell the story of the island. It's Mare Island because there's the community. Like you guys really are very intentional about how you run it, and it's my favorite part about you guys and this podcast. Like I've really enjoyed, because this is probably our last bonus episode. Sure. I feel like it's okay for me to nostalgia a little bit and just say like it's really my favorite part of the story is how much they actually, truly, authentically care about that community, as you guys know.
Right.
I think it's one of my favorite things for Kent and I is you come in here and you're like, again, no offense to the other brewers that come through your network here, but the fact you're like, man, I love you guys, because we're not talking about beer.
I get to not talk about beer for the first time in 20 years. Yeah.
I was curious, if you don't mind me asking, like, so after the Netflix docuseries came out, like how did that change your guys' life afterwards? Like I gotta imagine, one, anything gets on Netflix and is the number one up there, because I can tell you one thing, we were looking in marketing one day, and we're just, we always look at website visits and when our traffic goes up, and it was like January was, it was kind of like just bumping along, and all of a sudden January 17th last year, poof, like our views on our page just went insane,
because your hoodie was on a Netflix show.
All it was our hoodie was in there.
It's crazy that people picked up on that,
right?
Like we did, because I knew, he loved that sweatshirt. We love Mare Island, but it was. Oh.
Right. I picked up on it because when you guys came back that day, the story that Aaron told me, and this was obviously before we saw any of the footage or any of that, it was just him telling the story. He said, obviously this whole thing has been an absolute fucking nightmare. He goes, but the one thing that really just personally bummed me out, he goes, I was wearing my Mare Island Brewing Company hoodie. It was my favorite one when they interrogated me, and they took it and they never gave it back because it was evidence. And so I kept on to that. So when they came to the 10-year, I said, the first thing I did was gave him one. He goes, oh, they gave it back. And I'm like, you need this one.
Yeah, there's a fresh one.
There's a fresh one for you. But, again, like, so with that, back to the original question, like how the book is obviously something that really gets it out there. And honestly, again, I'd recommend you to read it because it really dives deeper than the docuseries goes. But like, what has kind of changed in your guys' life and kind of like your day-to-days and your interaction with again, we'll use the term true crime world or whatever, that this kind of really casted out there?
Our day-to-day in a lot of ways being parents is the same. Like Fair. It's just, it's like everything and nothing has changed. The biggest thing that's changed is that law enforcement is inviting us to speak in front of them. And that's something that we've always wanted. We wanted to work with law enforcement and be a part of it. And we were always worried. I mean, obviously we sued the city of Vallejo and the police department, and we settled. So there's that fear that anyone in law enforcement is just going to think of us as a nuisance and dismiss us. But instead, with the series, I mean, we've had like amazing reception from so many people, and being able to speak in groups of law enforcement, like being present with them in the same room and then talking with them about it and hearing their passion of like, this isn't how it should be done. And this fuels us to work on these things.
Wow.
It's really exciting to be a part of potential change. So that's encouraging.
Huge. Absolutely.
And then even again, with survivors, and I mean, all of us have survived something. We are all survivors of something. And to hear people, again, just like connect with certain things that we've gone through, and it motivates us to keep going. You know, it's like, the kidnapping itself was interesting because of the sensational pieces of it, but like what people really connect to is the after part.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, it gives us the opportunity to take this, take our pain and make it into a purpose, and that's really important. And that could be, this made me a better father after, and like to this point, we've been able to speak to law enforcement, and you start understanding more about, they have a tough job. It's not like anyone's, I don't think we ever thought that either, but like to have more discussions with, because of popularity of Netflix allows you to just evolve more from it and get more nuance and then start seeing, we just talked to a bunch of detectives who investigate sex crimes, and we know there's, 350 people in that room, and they're going to be dealing with thousands of others during their career. So hopefully we can be like a, avatar in that way. If something starts maybe going down one route, they take a pause, go like, hey, I remember, Denise's Aaron case, like maybe we should take a step back. Let's see what the evidence shows and see what we can do. And so that's been a huge adjustment, and a positive one. And then there's just like the funny, strange things this game recognizes.
I was going to say,
ask if
you're getting recognized all the time still.
And what an awkward, like, oh my God, I love your show. Like, that's not a good.
Yeah, everyone doesn't know quite what to say. They're like, I've had people go like, do I know you? Like, we're in Virginia doing, I know this guy's like, I was in the bathroom. He's like, do we know each other? I'm like,
man rules.
I was like,
stop talking.
Yeah, I was like, no.
First of all,
so
wait till we get out there.
Yeah. So I'm having a conversation with a guy. He's a lawyer.
No, I was waiting outside the bathroom. I'm like, did he go in? Did he come out? And I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, what
Was
is
it more
happening?
serious than I thought?
No, I'm like, oh no.
Gosh.
I was like at the grocery store. Someone's like, I was just watching you last night. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, but they're very nice.
Now that a little more time's removed, it's more of, do you, like, just
You
last
remind
week,
me of someone.
do I know you? Do you work at Wells Fargo? I'm like,
Oh
no.
my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then I just have to like just rip the Band-Aid off and be
you
like,
do?
I'm in a like in my boxing class, she just started and we're like paired up, and she's like, gosh, you look so familiar. And then I mention it and she's like, oh, and then you could see like the, oh, and then remembering certain parts and, oh my God. And she was like shaking, and I gave her a hug because like, some people are living it, experiencing it for the first time.
Right.
And it's
So
like, we're 9 years removed. So it's like, I get it, girl. Like I was,
I mean,
Oh my gosh.
it
You're
would
so
be
kind.
it'd be a trip though. Like imagine,
course, you're right,
like
right.
seeing something. I mean, I could only imagine roles reversed,
Right.
and even thinking about our friends and family, like they didn't experience the kidnapping itself, but they had to deal with people saying what and doing what, so like it's
I'll tell you, at the 10-year anniversary, I mean, it was a little bit of a receiving line around you guys. Like, you could see, I mean, I'm sure you see it in a room now where people, you all of a sudden you catch somebody's eye or whatever. But I mean, and people come at me, I was like, are those the couple from American Nightmare? I'm like, yeah, it's Aaron and Denise I invited. And they're like, oh my God, that's so awesome that they're here,
Right.
And so, it was, I know for our customers that saw you guys at the party, they were stoked to see you guys there, because honestly, they were like, it was almost like the one comment I got that really stood out was like, it's so awesome to see them back in Vallejo.
Yeah.
I didn't think they would ever come back. And I was like, I threw a flyer in an email, and I'm really glad to see them too, because this is something to celebrate, not to, they shouldn't be ostracized from the town, considering we should be rolling the carpet out every time they roll up to 80,
Right.
and go through to go up to their parents' house or whatever. So,
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't know about that.
Well,
no,
I mean,
no, but
Well, I mean, if you just want to throw a party every time we come, we'll show up.
We'll let you know.
Not
We're
against
coming
this.
to
writing it down. Kent,
gonna say
are you
no.
listening?
Yeah.
Can you do the cannon too? That was cool.
Yeah, we did have the cannon.
yeah.
That's right. And the airplanes. That was so it was a good party.
I'll have to tell this quick story about after the series came out. We're getting on a flight, and this early January, so the series is peaking at that point, and we're waiting in line just to put our bags and sit or load the plane. And someone's already sitting down. I look over, and he's got his iPhone, and he's watching the first episode. So I see myself on his phone, and I'm like, I gotta tap this guy, because it's like, I tap him on the shoulder. I'm like, hey man, what are you watching? That looks pretty interesting.
Oh my god!
Because I'm like standing.
I love this.
And then he looks up. He goes, yeah, it is. And this goes right back to the screen.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, I'm that dude, bro.
Yeah.
Denise tried to say that shit. That's and he's just like back into it.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, that was perfect.
Well,
I'm
it's
like,
captivating enough that you're not even going to
I was
notice
like
the
so
person.
glad.
in
But
front
I'm
of
like, what are the odds? Like you're on a plane, the guy that you're watching on TV is like
This-
there. But it's like, I was like,
Loading,
yeah, there we
yeah.
go. That was.
This
that
is
was
how
good.
not present we are. And it's kind of what I was saying about you. You guys have this gift of like presence, I
Yeah.
think, now too. This is how not present we are. Absolutely. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love this. Well, all right. I have this weird way to compliment you rolling around in my head. I'm going to try to do this. First of all, you're so delightful to speak to, and you have such an energy about you that's just so enjoyable. You have such a light coming from you. The compliment's going to sound like it's not a compliment.
Okay.
It sounds like your life is so much work. That's the compliment. You could just roll over and like sit in the dark and like not be great parents and not take on the world. But you have chosen to not do that. And it sounds like so much work. And I wish we all would work as hard at life as you two do. Between the being present, between the therapy, between like, it's a lot of work that you guys have done.
Yeah.
That's what I feel from you.
Thank you for that odd compliment.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Totally.
No,
It's so odd.
but I really appreciate that. One of the biggest side effects of my PTSD was exhaustion. Like I would just physically exhaust, especially pregnancy and caring for young kids. And then we're releasing our book, and then we're speaking publicly. And every time that like pulls at me physically, and it's there, like even being interviewed for the Netflix series, I was 7 months pregnant.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And going, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what am I doing? But in the end, but then like in that instance, I went to the back during a break, and one of the women working on the set was like, thank you. Like, thank you so much. And she shared her experience with me, and she's like, this is going to make such a big difference. It's going to make me emotional.
Yeah.
But like, that's why, because we got so much energy and strength and motivation to keep fighting from hearing from other survivors and seeing, how many other people struggle. And so we just like, we want to push through. We want to do it. We want to be a part of the change. And I feel like it would take a lot more energy to not. I feel like we would always regret it. Like my mom at one point was like, oh, just like get married, have kids, and like just leave it behind. Right. And I'm like, I get that, but I would always regret not trying. And I could try. And that's like, I guess the benefit of going through such a crazy trauma. Like if you try and you fail, people will forgive you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, like with the
safety net.
Yeah, no, really. Like speaking in front of law enforcement, I'm like, can I do this? I'm not a public speaker. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm like, you know what? People will forgive me.
So much grace.
Yeah. So then it's just, that's why we're like, okay, let's try. And again, we have each other, and that's like, it means the world. We can really lean on each other, and then again, all the people in our lives.
Yeah, and having that say in a husband wife relationship, they ideally they go like it's 50-50, but it's not. Maybe total will eventually be 50-50, but there's parts where like Denise is carrying more of the load, or I'm carrying more of the load, or there's times where we're both just exhausted and we're like, we are going to stay in and we're going to order takeout and we're going to just recover. And that's the benefit of having such an amazing partner to help support, and so we can rise up, or like, I'll take this on, like, while you take that, or and that's just like, again, going back to community and support within that is really important. So I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we are just kind of, I don't want to say we're flying by the seat of our pants, but we have been intentional. But there is a little bit of just like, okay, here's the next thing.
Sure.
Here's the next thing. And
I'm sure you know it at times too, but I'm also saying maybe you also sometimes don't know how much work, how much effort you guys are really putting in. And from the outside, I'm like, wow, they are just putting in effort on life. And I'm lazy, so I coast, so I can see it. So I know.
I don't think so.
I picked that up on you. Yeah.
You can tell. Yeah.
I have some questions. It's all right if it's cool, and again, shoot it down. But I was just curious if there's some of the unanswered things from the story. Are things still being investigated? Like, is the story closed? Like, I mean, I could be more specific.
Yeah.
But I just figured to start with that.
Right. Well,
and to what you can talk to.
Right. One of the other positives of this year and being able to speak to law enforcement and having people, a wider audience of people recognizing what happened and the mishaps of the investigation initially, there are people looking into more things, and that's
because
the most I can really say about that.
That's fair, because I mean, for me, and I'm sure it's every other listener, and again, apologies on this, but it just seems like the connection and the misidentification is the biggest unknown thing that just never made sense to me about what really happened, and if it was a team, if it was a black ops kind of thing. And that's the one, as a viewer, and of course intimately knowing you guys a little closer, that I've never felt comfortable with that part. It's like that's the one thing, the red herring there, that's like, this is the one thing that just seems like somebody should be running on that hard, like.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry.
That as victims, I mean, that's another piece. Some people are like, well, I didn't get the final answer of what happened. Well, we didn't either.
Right. Right.
And it's this is our life. And a lot of victims have to still somehow figure out how to have a life and move forward in the unknown.
Right.
And that's difficult. And I think there's some answers that we'll get. I think there's some that we won't ever get. And we've had to accept that a long time ago, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to keep fighting.
Sure.
And shouting and using our voice. And if we get little bits of answers, and if not just for us, but maybe for other victims out there, I think especially for other victims out there, because, this wasn't a singular case. So we will see what unfolds.
Sure.
Still unfolding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then work. I mean, you guys are doctors. I mean, this disrupted your guys' path. I mean, how's work life for you guys now? Are you working? Are you thriving? Are you enjoying it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
We are forever will always be physical therapists. We love our jobs. We love our patients. We love that's a big part of our identity, and we were able to reclaim that and get that back, thankfully.
Good. I mean, I had a knee surgery at Kaiser Vallejo, and I went through the therapy. Sherman was my main guy. I don't know if he was there when you guys were there.
Sherman's great.
Sherman's great. Yeah. He's a tank. He's the guy.
Awesome.
He's one of the guys you want when you're trying to walk again. But so I got to experience the team, and I've been in there in that weight room and stuff. So where you guys met and things, and what you guys do for your day-to-day jobs is super important, just as caregivers and giving back. And so, I'm wondering if there's any kind of, solace in getting back into that work,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Especially like after the initial event, you start feeling like you're potentially so broken and you can't be helpful again. And actually finding opportunity to get back to work, to start helping the profession that we have doctorate degrees in and stuff that we had dedicated our lives to, but just being useful and also not having understandably everyone was concerned about us, so you're always like the center of attention, and that's a weird place to be. Where so actually being able to help and start focusing on other people and being of service to people was a major part of our recovery. And again, going, not necessarily like this is a advice thing, but I would recommend people just try and find something to be feel like you're useful again, because you don't feel that way. And then even if it's like just picking up litter at the park or something basic, it starts where you feel like you can give back, and that unfortunately our jobs allow us to do that, and we'll do that forever. We love it. So, and
it has shifted, I guess, in some ways how I treat. I mean, I really try to dive deep with people, and especially people with chronic pain who have many different ailments and are kind of lost in their body and in their pain, and going back to childhood trauma and relating what their body's going through with that trauma, because I've lived it and I feel it.
Right.
It, like, of course, if your stomach's in knots because you're anxious all the time, it's going to pull you in this like fetal position, and it's going to tense you up, and then your, heart's going to work harder, and your breathing's going to change, and your muscles are going to be tense. And so it's just, it's really powerful for people to understand that their mind-body connection on a different level. So.
You two are delightful.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like a better person just having sat in this room next to them for an hour. Ryan, don't you feel this way?
Yeah, I mean, always, for sure. It could be the pale ale as well.
It could be the pale ale,
It could be the holiday
noon
spirit,
beer.
and just being able to talk to you guys, man. I think that's has to be the most rewarding thing, is feeling like you are, like you say, useful and giving back, and being able to. I mean, that's why when we were talking about dates to sit down and do this, you're like, oh yeah, but we're going to be going on. We have this conference that you're going to. Like you guys, like you said, you didn't go full fetal. You guys have. What I said before we started, you've taken your narrative back, because that to me was one of the biggest crimes from the beginning, is that it was written for you before you could say one word, and that I think has been a powerful change from the book, from the Netflix series, and obviously from the case that has come about. But I think that I'm super proud of you guys. I'm super proud of you guys. Like, you guys are still the awesome couple. You guys were budding and so doting on each other, and just seeing you guys now and the support of being married and parents and everything. I'm married and parent as well since then, and it's a beautiful thing to see the phoenix that in front of us right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel I was thinking about more getting ready for this interview is the parallels of why I like Maryland so much, and I think it's like that little bit of like there's some it's gone through rough times. Vallejo's gone through rough times, but like the potential and the growth and like the history and character, and that's why we want to be on the podcast. Why we love the brewery.
You got to put the work in, and all the work that you guys have done. Again, not just for the brewery itself.
We're putting the work in.
For the history and trying to like preserve the history of Mare Island, because it is an incredible history. So the fact that that's been kind of your guys' second baby is maybe even first. I mean,
first baby. It was my first baby.
Right. Yeah. So that's
it's really almost cool. A teenager, so it's getting there.
Yeah. Well, you guys have got me thinking about life in all the best ways. The book is Victim F. You can search it, I'm sure, everywhere, Amazon and wherever you get your books. Victim F, from crime victims to suspects to survivors. It's a super tragic and yet heroic story, I think, and so many heroes in the story, which is cool, including yourselves. And the Netflix docuseries is American Nightmare. You can go check it out there, too. And yeah, thank you, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a pleasure to get to talk about Mare Island and not talk about beer, Ryan. Thank you.
Not beer and not
although
ancient
the beer
history.
was delicious.
The beer was good. It's nice to talk about current history and seeing that it's thriving.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
It's fantastic. Thank you guys again for joining us and for agreeing to come on. I think this has been a fantastic bonus episode our listeners will love. And to know that, you guys do love our city and do love Mare Island. And I got to say, you're welcome anytime to come visit. So
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We'll take you up on that.
Thanks.
There we go. This is a bonus episode of Battleships to Beer, 10 years of the Mare Island Brewing Company. You can check out all 10 episodes, plus 5 or so bonuses.
Yeah.
They're all good. I love the bonus episodes, so go check them all out. And Ryan, I hope this is not our last time in the studio together.
I hope not either. And I got a couple of friends that keep saying, man, you got to do more episodes. I was like, well, you got to get more listeners out there.
I know, right?
I know my mom's listened to them all. I bring her up in almost every one. So,
she's worth like 5 downloads per.
Absolutely. Because she can't figure it out the first 3, and then by the time the 4th time she gets it. But either way, they count.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Aaron and Denise. Take care of yourselves and your beer.